10 years ago today, the premiere of Legend of Korra came to all of our small screens. It may have come a little bit later for me actually, because in the UK we usually got them like nearly a year later. But either way, Legend of Korra aired on this date 10 years ago, which is insane to think, but it's been 10 years since Legend of Korra first came out. And as is the case for most anniversaries and huge occasions here on YouTube, Antoine Bandelet has brought together a huge collaboration of YouTubers across this platform to talk about our one legendary scene in relation to Legend of Korra. So for me, my one legendary scene is when Korra reconnects with her avatar state in Season 4, Episode 4, The Calling. And here is why that is my one legendary scene. Now, if you've been around my channel for a long period of time, you know that I like to talk about trauma. And so, of course, when I was choosing my one legendary scene, it had to be something trauma related. Why wasn't it Korra alone? Well, I've already done a video about Korra alone, but also Korra alone is just, it's well known for it to be a good episode, and everything about it is just all encompassing in the examination of Korra's trauma and just Korra as a character. But it's the calling, and specifically the ending scene where Korra is finally able to reconnect with her avatar state by removing the remaining metal poison inside of her. Then, for me as someone who is generally really impacted by high emotional scenes, is the one that sticks out to me the most as a scene that always makes me cry, a scene that, you know, ends with a loving hug and reunion with others, and it's an episode that, though not focusing solely on Korra as a character, pretty much sums up the themes for Legend of Korra as a whole, with Toph the therapist, which is also the other way I like to call this episode, which is Toph the no-nonsense therapist. If you have a no-nonsense therapist like I've had in the past, they can be pretty good. But I don't think I'd like Toph as a therapist because I'm not emotionally stable enough for that. But anyway, let's get in to Toph the no-nonsense therapist and how her actions lead to this legendary scene of Korra being able to remove the metal. The thing that always drew me to this episode is the fact that we learn around this time that Korra still has metal trapped inside of her body, which is why she's not been able to reconnect to the avatar state. And that alone is something we didn't really expect. We just thought it was kind of possibly just like a mental block, you know, like how Spider-Man has the whole thing of like a web block. I thought that was the case for Korra, but when Toph says, well, of course you're feeling, you know, tired and not great, you're still carrying that hunk of metal around. But the thing that makes it more interesting is when Toph tries to remove it. It is physically painful for Korra to have that happen, to the point that she can't, and Toph refuses. And so they go down this line of basically Toph, in her no-nonsense therapy aspects, basically just doesn't want to do anything, because as she says, how can I keep training you? How can we keep doing things if you won't remove the thing that is blocking you? And that leads into this really impactful scene that I just absolutely love, which is where Toph basically sits down in the swamp with Korra and says to her, you know, what has been troubling you? Like, what's going on? Obviously in her Toph way. To which Korra then lays out all she can think about, and she had this whole scene in the swamp where she was walking around and all she sees and finds are her past enemies, all the people who've hurt her, all the people who've caused her harm. And as Toph says, she's carrying around the enemies of her past just like she's carrying that metal. But what I think is more interesting about that is sort of the metaphor elements that come from it, and I love a metaphor, so of course I have to point it out, is that Korra's trauma has quite literally manifested itself as the metal inside of her, something that is holding her back from going out to be the Avatar again because she is afraid. She's holding on to the memories of her enemies and the harm they caused her to justify her not being able to remove the metal from herself or have someone remove the metal from herself, because she doesn't want to go through that again. the trauma has a real physical manifestation in the form of the metal inside her and the memories that she has. And it is only through confronting these things and realizing that these are memories, that these things aren't still happening, is the only way that Korra can move forward. And as someone who's gone through cognitive behavioural therapy myself, which is usually done for things like PTSD and other trauma-related, illnesses, what Korra is going through of, continuing this fight or flight response to her memories is a very real trauma response. She's having both the memory flashes of going back to those moments of trauma, while also having this thing inside of her that she doesn't want removed out of fear of going back to those moments. And even the fact that to remove these things, and this is the thing that I love the most about it, when she's removing the metal from her body by herself, because Toph says quite rightly, as most any therapist would, they can't do it for you. Toph cannot remove this trauma for her. Korra has to do it herself. So as she is pulling the metal from her body, she is seeing all of the memories that she is having to, in a sense, relive through. And it is only Toph's words of, these things are not happening now. All of these things are in the past. She has to let go. It's something that a lot of therapists and therapy in general for trauma can often confront, because the way in which trauma can often manifest itself is that your body is in a constant state of fight or flight, as if the traumatic event, no matter how long ago it was, can still feel like it's happening right now. And we're seeing this happen as Korra is pulling this metal from her. She keeps stopping herself, keeps pulling away, afraid to push forward, until eventually she accepts what Toph is saying, that all of these things that happened are in the past, and is able to push out the metal from inside of her, removing it and removing this obstacle and removing this mental block that she has based on her trauma, to finally unlock the side of herself which is herself. The thing that Korra was most afraid of was returning to who she was. But she manages to do this. She returns and is able to reach the avatar state once again. She is fully formed as herself once more. But, as we know later on, that isn't the one fix-all moment, but it is the starting point. And as someone who has been in therapy for God knows how long, seeing Korra reach this starting point of being able to reach inside of herself and recognize the trauma that she experienced, and having the message from Toph of what each of her enemies represented and how Korra can learn from them in some way to be able to move on from her trauma and face her trauma, is something that I can really appreciate as someone who has, obviously not to the superhero level that Korra has, but as someone who has experienced trauma. Seeing the way in which Korra confronts it and seeing the way in which Toph helps her without forcing it on her, helps her do it at her own pace without actually offering a helping hand except some calm guiding words, is something that was just so beautiful to see. And it's why Korra removing the metal and regaining her avatar state is my one legendary scene. But what is your one legendary scene? What is the thing from Legend of Korra that has stuck with you ever since you watched the show? Be sure to comment that in the comment section down below. But also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out the rest of the collaborators for the One Legendary Scene collaboration here on YouTube, created and started by Antoine Bandelay. The playlist for that is going to be in the description box, so check out all the other videos here. And if you would like to make one of your own, be sure to do so and get that added to the playlist as well. Everyone is welcome to the One Legendary Scene, because we are all here to celebrate Legend of Korra's 10-year anniversary. If you're going to be hateful in the comments about Legend of Korra on her anniversary, we're going to have beef, by the way. I'm just putting this here now. But there have been so many people involved in this collaboration. So Antoine, thank you so much for creating this, and to all the incredible people who have got involved with it. I can't wait to see all of your videos. So yeah, this was my one legendary scene, and I can't wait to do the next one in 2 years' time when we get to the 10-year anniversary for the finale of Legend of Korra. Of course, if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell for my channel, as well as all the other collaborators involved. And I hope you enjoy your 10-year anniversary celebration of Legend of Korra. See you all next time.